n8n is rolling all the way to the clouds. And this is the only video you need to go from 0 to 100. This is your best investment. N8n is one of the most in-demand tools today with over 9,900% growth in searches just this year. So if you want to stay ahead, don't miss out on the opportunity to join this community. Inside, you'll find complete workflows to help you take action right away. In addition to a community of entrepreneurs and AI enthusiasts, this platform is here to help you and support your growth. So let's jump right in. The goal of this video is to help you become one with the platform. You can go from zero to expert without knowing how to code. And to prove it, in this video, you're going to learn how to build 4 workflows that you can actually start using today. And I promise they'll make your life a whole lot easier. The first workflow is focused on businesses. For example, service-based businesses. Let's say you have a form connected through Google. We are going to create a workflow that automatically sends an email to your potential customer. But not only that, it would also send a notification to your sales teams. This way, you can offer faster and more efficient service, dramatically increasing your closing rate. For workflow number 2, we'll create an agent that helps you automatically schedule appointments. It can book calls and meetings, and even create tasks in spreadsheets. Workflow number 3, you'll learn how to set up a daily reporting workflow. This one will be directly connected to the first workflow, so you'll never forget to follow up with leads again, and you'll stop losing prospects just because you forgot to call them. If you hate losing money, then this video is definitely for you. And you're also going to learn how to use Webhook, a special node in n8n that allows you to communicate with other applications. And finally, you'll transform your first AI agent into a super agent. Connect it to a RAG system, make it much smarter and more specialized. Don't worry, all the resources will be available for free in the description. That way, you'll be able to follow these tutorials step by step until the next video. First, you need to go to the following link, n8n. This is a platform that allows you to create automations and artificial intelligence agents. Let's take a quick look at their pricing. Plans start at 24 and you get a 14-day free trial, which is more than enough for you to test it out. However, on this channel, we have videos that show you how to use these platforms completely for free. Creating your account on n8n is very easy and straightforward. Once you've created your account, this will be your welcome dashboard. The only buttons you'll need to use are the ones that let you to create a new workflow. You also have access to free templates within the platforms. Let's enter a new workflow. Inside this canvas, you have access to different options. You can rename your workflow, add new nodes by clicking here, and you also have an execution history. This allows you to recover your project in case you accidentally deleted something. Also, right over here, you have the option to import and export workflows. Every workflow begins with a trigger. Take a look at this workflow. This is the trigger for the flow, while the rest of the nodes are individual tasks that are activated by the trigger. There are different types of triggers, and everything depends on that kind of workflow you want to create. If we add a new trigger to our workflow, we'll see the following window open. For example, if we add a trigger, you'll see that in the center section, you can configure the node, while on the right side, you'll find the output, which is the data that the node shares after it runs. Let's start our workflow with this node, which is a native form from n8n. This will allow us to use or simulate a form for like ones used on social media platforms. If you go to the top of the node, you'll see it has 2 URLs. The first one is a test URL, which only works to test your workflow. The second one is used when you want to workflow go to live. Now let's configure like this. First, give your form a title. You can also add a description. Next, you'll add a fields like first name, last name, email, budget, phone number, and an optional message box. But you can also make these fields required by simply enable that option. If we now run our trigger, a window will open. Once we fill in all the information, we can click submit. If you back in n8n, you will see that our node just received data. Each node in n8n after running, it will give us three output formats. Now, an important part is always to pin this data. While you're working and building your workflow, you don't have to start from scratch. You just have to click here or press the letter P. The other important part is that the data you produce can be edited. For example, if you want to change the message, you can do it even if the data is pinned. You just have to click here and edit it. For instance, let's edit the email. You click on save, and this is a very powerful way to work with data. For the next step, what we are going to do is add a new Google Sheets node. You can do this by clicking on tab or by selecting either of these two options. Your node window will open and we are going to look for the Google Sheets node. Once you open it, you'll see how many options you have with this node. We're going to choose the following one. Now, inside this node, we're going to add the following information from the previous node: first name, last name, email, phone number, and the optional message. But first, whenever you add a native Google Node, the first thing you need to do is create your credentials. Newer versions of n8n allow you to connect with the platform in an easier way, just by signing in. If the following window appears, you'll need to get your client ID and client secret. To find them, you just go to the following link, console.cloud.google.com. Once you're in, you need to create a new project. Click on this section to create a new project, assigning a name, and click on Create. You must make sure to select the projects that you're working within. To activate all Google apps and services, go to your main menu. We are going to the Apps section. Click on the option to enable apps and services, and a search window will open where you need to search for the application we're looking for. For example, Google Sheets. Once it appears, you need to open it and click on Enable. You also need to search for and enable the following applications. I'll leave them on the screen. If this is your first time creating your credentials, you need to select the option for consent screen or out. It will appear blank and you just need to click on Get Started. Here, you just need to fill in the information, select an email address, click here to allow external users. Then we simply create them. Finally, you need to get to the publishing section and click on the option to publish the application. Confirm, and that's it. This step is necessary to obtain your client ID and client secret. Next, go back to the API and Services section and look for the Credentials option. Select Create Credentials, then choose OAuth Client ID. In the application type, select Web Application. Assign a name and add the following URL. To do this, go back to n8n, copy the following link, and paste it into your Google Cloud Platform. Once you click on Create, the following information will be generated: your client ID and client secret. You just need to copy them, return to n8n, and paste them into this section. Finally, I recommend giving it a name so you can keep everything organized. In this case, I already have my credentials prepared for this tutorial, so I'll just close it and that's it. Once your credentials are connected, you'll be able to access all the documents linked to your account. We select the sheet we want to work with and it will automatically sync with our document. Here we go in and check the information of our spreadsheet. We can see that the same columns we have in our spreadsheets are also available in our node in n8n. Now let's go in and review the setup. n8n allows you to work with dynamic tags, which makes handling information much easier. Once our form is submitted, we have all this data available, which can drag and drop into the specific fields, so that all our information get updated automatically in the spreadsheet. However, there are two dynamic tags that are a bit more complex. These allow us to generate a specific date, so when the workflow starts, it always returns today's date. Meanwhile, the second one allows you to automatically approve or reject a lead based on this field. That way, depending on the budget, we'll know which leads were approved and which ones were not. Now that we have this set up and leads are coming in, what we need to do is filter them. This way we can determine which leads are available and which ones aren't. In n8n, we have three different options for this. We can use a switch node, an if node, or a filter node. Let's take a look at the filter node. This node allows only truly qualified leads to move on the next section. We just need to drag in this dynamic tag, which let us tell n8n, hey, if this budget is equal to this value, please keep it because it's an important lead for me. The next step in this flow is a switch node. What this node does is, based on its configuration, we can decide whether the information goes one way or another. Let's imagine the following case. A lead doesn't have enough budget, but you still want your team to evaluate the possibility of a follow-up call. What you can do is use this switch node so that the information follows based on the budget set by the lead. Let's review the configuration of this node. This node isn't directly connected to the filter node, but instead it connects directly to our form. This way we're telling it, hey, take this dynamic tag, but if the budget equals this value, then take a different path. Let's run it and review the process. Now, imagine you have two teams. The first team is responsible for handling the most qualified leads, while the second team takes care of leads that don't meet your filter criteria. To do this, we'll add two Gmail nodes. We'll select the node to send an email and connect it to one of the paths, while the other path will be connected to a second Gmail node. Let's review the configuration of this node. However, both have a very similar setup, so we'll focus on just one of them. This first node ensures that you always send an email to the person who currently fills out the form. If you add all the necessary applications correctly, when setting up your credentials, they will appear here again. You should leave it configured as it is, and this dynamic tag comes from the email address. You simply take it, drag and drop into this section. This node can be customized so that only people with a budget about $1,000 will receive the email. This is incredible because you can add a subject, you can add a personalized message, and when activated, you can check your email to review the results and see how the message arrives. This is incredibly powerful as you can set up a personalized message both for leads that meet your criteria and for those that don't. The configuration of this node is very similar. The only thing I will recommend to you is changing the personalized message. The next step will be to use a merge node. We'll connect these two nodes. And what this node allows you to do is no matter which path the information takes, it will be unified in this one place. The reason is that we're going to add a new Gmail node, and this can help ensure that your team is always aware of the new leads coming in. After executing this step, you can review the email again, and we can see that we have an email with the information we just added, a new lead with their name, email, budget, and the message they wrote in our work form. This node also has an option to add a small watermark. I recommend that you enable it. Otherwise, all the emails you send will have this n8n watermark. This way, you've finally built a system that allows you to populate a Google Sheets document, filter this prospect, send personalized emails based on your needs, all of this using the new leads you've received. Now, imagine that during the workday you receive many contacts, all of which were accepted and have the correct budget you need. However, the workday has ended, and now you want a summary of the calls you have pending for the next day. This is a workflow that will help you generate a lead report at the end of the day. Let's run it and review. First, it gets triggered at the specific time, reads our spreadsheet to get only today's data, which are pending calls. Then it filters them, merges them into a single item, formats them to generate a text message, and sends it by email. Let's review the final results and move on to the configuration. Once the workflow runs, we'll receive a list with the total number of leads that are pending. We'll get their data, name, email, budget, the date they registered, and the status of the call. That way, first things the next morning, we'll have the exact list of leads we need to call. Now, let's review the configuration of this workflow. Back in n8n, we'll take a look of how this workflow is set up. We said that it will be triggered at the specific time, right at the end of the day. Whenever you want a workflow to run at certain time, you need to set up a schedule trigger. You can configure it to run once a day, once a week, or a specific date and time. This node is configured to trigger every day at 7 p.m. When this node activates, like a little clock, it triggers the rest of the workflow. Since we're looking to generate a report of all the leads that contact us today, we're going to add this new worksheets node. it must be set to the get rule operation and linked to the document we're working with. Remember, these files will also be available for free in the description. The purpose of this node is to retrieve all the data from the date column using the following dynamic tag. It's configured with a specific time zone, but if you want to adapt it to your local time zone, you can take this dynamic tag, copy it, open Cloud or ChatGPT, paste it, and ask it to generate a new dynamic tag using the correct time zone. If we run this node, we'll see that it generates 12 results. These are the 12 leads pending and call on today's date. The next step is to filter them. Remember, we only want the ones that are still pending on call. For that, we'll use a filter node again. We'll take the dynamic tag from the field responsible for the call status and tell this node to only allow through the leads that are pending on call. If we execute it, we can see that it led through the 12 results that we generated. Now, if we go back to our spreadsheet and, for example, change the status of one of the leads, then return to n8n and refresh the spreadsheet, we still see 12 results being generated. But when filtered, it will now return 11, omitting the lead that has already been called. Once we have the filter results, we need to merge them all into a single individual field. We do this using a special node called aggregate. It takes all the results generated in the workflow before they reach it, and after processing, it produces a single individual item. The next step is to format that into text. Since we want everything generated by the aggregate node to be turned into one single block of text when processed by this code, you probably might be thinking, coding isn't really my thing. Don't worry, honestly, I didn't write this code. I just asked ChatGPT to help me, and you can do the same with ChatGPT or with Cloud. If if we run it, we can see that it generates a list with a total number of leads and message. This message includes the name, the email, the message left by the lead, the date they registered, the call status, and the status of their budget. And once this text is generated, what we want next is to receive information with all the contacts generated. We are going to do this through this Gmail node, which will be in charge of sending us an email with the complete list of leads generated. This node is configured with our credentials. We need to select the operation as sent. We can add our email or our team's email, add a subject, and this dynamic tag comes from the previous node. We simply drag and drop it here. Remember to disable this option, otherwise when it runs, we will see in our email not only the list of the leads generated, but also a small watermark at the end. If you are working with clients, I recommend that you remove this. This way, you not only learn how to automate forms, but also how to generate daily reports. I am sure that what you just learned would help you improve your productivity. You don't have to worry about showing up the next day and checking the pending task, since you will have an automated list every day at the end of the workday with the task pending for the next day. If you are enjoying what you're learning, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. We upload content like this every week. Let's keep going with the video because the valuable information isn't over yet. To continue, we are going to move on to this special node called webhook. This is one of the most important and commonly used nodes in n8n. A webhook is a special node in n8n that allows you to communicate with external applications. Let's take a look inside this node to explain some important points. First, this node has two URLs, one for testing while it's under construction, and the second when your workflow is active. If you want to check how it works, you can copy this URL, click on execute, open a new tab, paste the link you just copied, and when you press enter, this window will appear. If you go back to n8n, you'll see that you just received information. However, all of this is empty data. Let's check it with a practical example. Continuing with our workflow example, we're going to use forms. We are on this website called Tally, and what we're going to do here is create a new form. To do that, we click on Create New Form. You can either create a form from scratch or use a template. We're going to use one that's already made to speed up the process.
We give it a name and delete the unnecessary fields for this example. Once this is done, we publish it. We go to the integration section at the top, find the webhook section, and click on connect. Then we go back to n8n, copy all link, and click listen. Next, we return to Tally, paste it, and we are ready to test it. We can copy the link, open a new tab, paste it, and fill it with the necessary data. If we click Submit and go back to n8n, we'll see that all the data has been successfully recorded in our webhook. This webhook, for example, could replace the phone trigger that we created at the beginning of the video, with the intention of creating a much more robust connection with different applications. The main benefits of using a webhook as a node in n8n are: first, real-time automation. You receive an immediate response since it executes instantly when an event occurs. There are no delays, which means you don't need to wait for a process to be checked periodically, and execution is on demand. It only activates when there is something to process. Second, it helps with resource efficiency. And third, seamless integration. Since you have direct connection with external applications, use a standard format, and it allows flexibility with other workflows. Now that you know how to use and configure a webhook, what other developments could you combine it with? Leave me a comment down below to let me know in which workflow you are going to implement it. Up to this point in the video, you've already learned 2 developments that I'm sure will be really useful to you. You are going to learn how to create your own AI agent that can access to your calendar, schedule your appointments, and much more. This way, you can have your own assistant connected to your phone. Think about how many businesses could need something like this. Clinics, real estate agents. With this development, you can save hours and hours of customer service. And the best part is that you're going to learn how to build it from scratch with me. To interact with this agent, we are going to use a native node from n8n. This node will let us communicate with our AI agent. To add it, just click Search for AI agent, select the correct option, and that's it. For this agent to process all the messages it receives, it needs 3 main things: a brain, which lets it understand messages. We will focus on the OpenAI modem. A memory, so it can remember all the messages it receives. And finally, access to defined tools. First, we are going to set up the brain of our agent, so you can follow along step by step. It's really easy. All you need to do is add your API key. I already have mine added, but I'll show you how to do it. To get your OpenAI API key, you need to go to the following website. If you never create an account on this platform, when you sync up, it will also generate your first API key. If you already have an account but don't know where to get your API key, here's what you need to do. Go to your profile, find the API key section, and create the new API key. Give it a name, select a project, create a new API key, copy it, go back to n8n, and in the Create New Credentials section, just paste it. This will allow your agent to have the ability to think, thanks to the GPT model you choose. This will be the only tool that has a cost. The next step is to set up a memory. As we mentioned before, this will allow the agent to remember the messages we sent it. Let's set this up. This is one of the simplest, most basic, but powerful tools. Finally, we mentioned that our agent has access to defined tools. For this example, we are going to use Google Calendar. You just need to search for it in the search bar. Select it, and when you open it, you'll see that you have access to different options. Get an event, create an event, or update it. We can also select the specific calendar where we want these events to be created. Remember, all this information will be available as long as you have your credentials connected, the way I show you at the beginning of the tutorial. When you give this tool to your AI agent, it will automatically create dynamic tags. It will set a start time and an end time. But since we're using an AI agent, we can easily change this expression and also adjust the event's end time. This will allow your agent to individually generate a start time and an end time. We're also going to add this option, which will let us include a summary of the event. We can now start testing our AI agent. All we need to do is click on Open Chat. We can start by grading it. For example, you want to check if the memory is working. We can give it some personal information and see if it remembers. For instance, we can tell it our name and then ask again later. Great. Now let's schedule an appointment. We can ask the agent to book a dentist visit. It will ask us what time we'd like, and we can say tomorrow at 3 p.m. Perfect. It creates a link and set the appointment. If we click the link, we can see the dentist appointment from 3 to 4 p.m. And now let's keep setting up our AI agent. Another option we can turn on is letting the agent read out the events from our calendar. All we need to do is go in and change the option from create to get events. If we then ask our agent about our schedule for tomorrow, it will reply with the exact event we already have booked. This agent is super useful if you run a business that depends on appointments like a dentist, a mechanic, or a service provider. You can have all these automated so that your prospects or clients can contact you and book directly. You can also add many more tools to this agent. For example, Google Sheets, where you can track your task or even create events right there. The possibilities are truly limited. I love to go deeper into this topic, but now let's take this AI agent one step further. We're going to do this with a RAG system. In simple terms, a RAG system is like a database with superpowers. It's a technique in artificial intelligence that combines searching for information in documents or external sources with generating text. This way, the AI, in our case, the agent, can answer much more correctly based on real information instead of just making things up. This way, you make sure your AI agent can access all your process or information, for example, about your business, and reply correctly without mistakes. This system needs a source of information. In this case, we'll use Google Drive. From this source, it will create a result that our AI agent will interpret and then generate a proper response. Now, we are going to bring together much of what we've learned today and apply it to the next project. We will review this documentation, which belongs to a digital advertising company. It includes their products, schedules, and clearly defined policies. This is what's going to completely change the way you work here. And that's why what we're building is so important. Once you have that documentation ready, we'll move over to n8n and review this system together. This can be for a personal project, your own business, or you can even offer this to other businesses. At the beginning of the video, we mentioned that every workflow starts with a trigger. For this case, we are going to use Google Drive. So let's search for the Google Drive node, select change involving a specific folder, and connect our credentials. Next, we'll select the folder where we'll store all the documentation for our company. In my case, it's called BlueRag. The next step is to set up this node so it watches for when a file is created, like this. Every time we upload a new file to our folder, this trigger will activate. Before turning it on, I want to mention that I already created the folder in Google Drive and added the document we are going to use. Now let's go back to n8n and activate our trigger. The next step is to download the document. We can do this using the same Google Drive node. Firstly, you need to make sure your node is set to download mode and reconnect your credentials. The settings we're going to change here is the from list by ID. This will ensure we always download the correct document. We'll find it in the input section of the node and simply drag this dynamic tag into the field. Now we execute this step and that's it. The document we download is exactly the same as the documentation we have for this company. With our document uploaded to the folder and downloaded, the next step is to send this information to our RAG system. We are going to send our document with all the information to our server in Pinecone. which will be responsible for breaking down all the information we provide. Before adding the node, I like to explain a little about Pinecone is. Pinecone is a cloud-based vector database. It's specifically designed for AI applications, which make it perfect for what we're trying to build today. So we open our node bar, search for Pinecone, and select the Add Documents option. To set it up, go to pinecone.com. You'll need to create an account if you don't have one yet. It's very simple. Just register like any other app. Once you do that, you'll see a homepage like this. The first step is to get your API key, which is completely free. To do this, go to the API key section, create a new API key, give it a name, click on Create New API Key, and copy it. Then you need to go back to n8n, open your Pinecone node as a new credential, paste the key, give it a name, and click on Save. This way, your Pinecone account is connected to n8n. Next, we need to go back to the Pinecone page to configure one more step. On the home page, we need to create a new index, give the index a name, and you need to select an embedding model. I recommend you to use OpenAI, and you need to change the dimension of this embedding model from this to this. Then we just click Create Index. When it's created, we go back to n8n. This node needs two tools. First, an embedding model. We'll use OpenAI for this, and all we need to do is connect our credentials. Next, we need to create a universal file reader for our documentation. The purpose of this node is to convert binary files into documents that can be processed by other nodes. This way, all the information from Pinecone is converted into perfectly readable text for our super AI agent. To configure it for testing, first change the data type from JSON to binary. We will create a connection between this node and our trigger, so we always ensure we are reading the correct document. Next, we add a new property called file, and for the value, we add the dynamic tag from the Google Drive node, which in this case gives us the file name. Once we have this dynamic tag, change the text split option from simple to custom. This will allow us to divide all our information in the database into individual chunks of the size we want. For example, we can split it into chunks of 500 characters. This is called chunk size. We can set the chunk overlap value to 20. This to prevent losing information between breaks or length jumps. Finally, we go back to Pinecone. With our credentials connected, we need to select the index we created. In this case, this one. We also need to select the same embedding size that we set on the Pinecone site. After that, we need to run it. We can see it just returns some information, but if you want to make sure our node is working correctly, we can go back to Pinecone, open the index we created, and you need to check the record count. Also, if you scroll down, you should be able to see the information from your database. If you don't see it, there is probably a mistake in your system. If everything is correct, we are going to connect this entire rack system to our AI agent. So let's go back to n8n to finish setting up the system. At the beginning of this tutorial, we learned how to create a simple but powerful AI agent. Now, we are going to give it superpowers with the system you just learned to build. First, copy your AI agent using Ctrl+C, go back to your rack system and paste it. Now, we'll connect the AI agent to our vector database. Before continuing with this setup, let's change one feature of our embedding model. This is the agent's so-called imagination setting. This option controls how much the agent can wander or be creative in its responses. Since we are using official company documentation, we'll set it the agent only answer based on the documentation. A higher number will make it wander more, which we don't want. Previously, our agent had access to Google Calendar as a tool. Now, we give it access to our vector database. We need to set up this new tool with the following prompt. Every message the agent receives, in addition to checking its existing tools, must also consult the vector database. This ensures the agent's response always follows the company documentation. The instruction we give it is that it must check this information before answering. This tool also needs a language model. In this case, we'll use OpenAI again. Next, we need to select the credentials we should have added earlier. Then, for the vector, we'll again use Pinecone. Make sure it's connected to your credential and link to the correct index. After that, we need to add an embedding model for our vector store. Add it, connect your credentials again, and that's it. Finally, we need to update our AI agent. We'll change its prompt to the following. We tell it that it's a customer service professional for a company called Path Digital, has access to a database and information, and must always follow that information before answering. Now let's test it. We'll copy the documentation and ask to ChatGPT to generate 10 difficult questions based on the documentations. Once generated, we'll test our agent. We are going to copy the first question, go back to n8n and ask it. Perfect. The first question was the estimated price for 1,000 flyers, and it responded 1,200. That's correct. Then we need to ask the next question. We wait for it to give us the answer and check it. If we compare the answers, we see they are very similar. Now let's try one last question and check the results. We are going to ask, what is the cost for 5 shirts with a vectorized logo? It tells us that 5 shirts cost 950 in total, and the logo vectorization costs 150. So the total is 1,100. If we check with ChatGPT, we see it gives the same answer. This simple agent can connect to your CRM, WhatsApp, or Telegram. Imagine how powerful this will be for businesses and how much time it will save answering common questions like what is the price, where do you deliver, or where are you located. If you really value this information, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This development is free and available in the description. I promise, if you made it this far with me, you are no longer a beginner in this platform. You are almost an expert. It's time to join this digital revolution. Before you go, you're ready to turn knowledge into action. Join to Mintodwell, a community where passionate AI entrepreneurs and people like you connected to share real strategies, opportunities, and experiences you won't find anywhere else. You'll also get access to ready-to-use and editing templates to save time and resources. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.